I didn't know that she had followed me home. She visits me when I am least aware. I've looked in the places where she hides, and in the daylight she isn't there. I bury her again late at night, for some reason in the garden that I till. She's the old Vietnamese woman that I know I didn't kill. Others visit me late at night looking for her. They wonder where. But never do they find the old woman, because for them she isn't there. I fear that someday they will find the secret spot in my dark dreams where I get visited on too many nights by the old Vietnamese woman who never screams. Years have gone by and she visits less. The others have stopped looking too, and still I keep the garden neat and productive to please the old Vietnamese woman that I didn't kill. Was that her family on that old sand pan deep in the muddy delta so many years ago? Is that the reason she visits me, the old Vietnamese woman that I didn't know? I accept her presence and wish her peace. I wish her family happiness and goodwill. And someday I hope for a complete release from that old Vietnamese woman I didn't kill. We got there in the beautiful month of April in the year 1969, at the tender age of 29. It was sort of a, oh crap, what the hell am I doing here? I can't believe I did this. And I never went over with the group. I went over as more or less as an individual, so it's sort of like I was wandering around Saigon with a piece of paper saying, you need to get to this Navy organization over on such and such street. And okay, well, it must be transportation someplace. Eventually I found it, eventually I got there, and the first thing I did, I had to walk through about 15 feet of sandbags they had lined up, and I says, man, these people are not friendly. And this was in Saigon. One of my most hated places over there was Saigon. And then from there I was eventually detached down to Cat Lo, which is just north of Vung Tau, where my main base was at. Being on the river, on the Mekong, we got into some scrapes and we also did some patrolling. But again, my job was not primarily going over there and shooting and getting shot at, though that did occur. Probably one of the things that sticks in my mind a little bit is when we were trudging through the Mekong Delta, Mud City, gotta love it. We had I think a 20-foot Boston Whalers with a couple of Johnson 40 horsepower motors on the rear. We'd use those instead of the junks when we were going on patrol. And the nice thing about going with the Vietnamese is they're a lot lighter, so you can take more with you, so it's a little more protection. And the good thing about culture-wise is when you jump into the boat and they put their hand on your knee and pat your knee, you know you're coming back. Because something like that in the United States at that time would have been interpreted something different. There, it was a good sign. It means that they like you, you're going to come back. We went out on this one particular patrol, and we came across an encampment where the Charlie had been. It was pretty well laid out, and we're walking delicately, stepping into footprints because the thing is booby-trapped. They went around and started removing. In a room about, I would say, roughly the size of this one, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 by 30 or something like that, we found over 20 explosive devices that they rigged up. We missed one. It blew up the foot of one of the Vietnamese that was with us. And this is where I began to find out a little deterioration in Vietnam. We called for a chopper to come pick him up. And they told us that we can't do that because he's not an American. Well, when you're out in the jungle with a group of people and you want to give them assistance, medical assistance, and get them back, and you're told that the people that you work for won't pick him up because he happens to be Vietnamese, it doesn't make you too comfortable. So what we did, we waited just a little while and we called and said one of the advisors had been injured. So we just swapped and threw him on the dust off the chopper instead. There was some other things. I've seen my share of punji pits, and some of them were quite well disguised, but man, they're horrible looking. It's just nothing more than a pit with bamboos sticking up in the bottom. They're nicely sharpened, and then in the Mekong you have lots of tides. It's a really tidal effect. And we did some landings with the Rough Puffs, the local Vietnamese army, to get them into the battle positions they needed to be in. And we'd pull into a certain area, the tide would go out, and we'd look around, and we're sitting in a bed of punji stakes that were just underneath the water. So if the boat had pulled up and people just jumped out, they'd have impaled themselves on those things. I picked up a couple of bugs over there that gave me problems for years, until I finally found an old doctor that was able to take care of one of the problems, intestinal problems. I know the difference between dysentery and diarrhea. Experienced that. I had a touch of malaria, which is you don't get a Purple Heart for that, unfortunately. Only rice under the skin do you get a Purple Heart. Let's see. Pardon? Cancer? Yeah, that's right. I forgot about Agent Orange, rats. Yeah. I was diagnosed in 2016 with stage 4 prostate and bone cancer. And a little surprised because it developed within about a 2-year period, which is awfully fast to go to stage 4. And then doing a little research on it, we find out that those people who are exposed to Agent Orange, welcome Mekong Delta, that they are susceptible to an aggressive form of it. It doesn't increase your chances of getting prostate cancer, but it makes it the most aggressive type that you can get. Instead of taking 20 years to develop, it can do it in a couple of years. So we can thank Agent Orange probably for that. But that's all taken care of now, so everything is cheery and rosy in that respect. And of course VA comes through like a champ on those things. I don't made too much money that year, or I wasn't the right type of a veteran, or I was the wrong age group or something. So VA has done absolutely nothing to satisfy me with anything that I have. Everything is pretty much taken care of through other means. The poem was dreams. I can't really call them nightmares, but constant dreams of this woman who kept showing up at night in my dreams, and she was always in the garden. And it bothered me. I didn't know how to get rid of it or live with it. So I had found out that from my childhood I had a couple of bad experiences, and I went with my wife back to Wisconsin, and we made an attempt to get in to see this area where I was related to where I was having the dreams. And by actually going back to her and addressing it, it seemed a way to get rid of it, and I don't have the dreams about that when I was a foster kid. So I thought maybe I'd try this particular approach. It's worked. I feel pretty good about it. I don't have the dreams along with that subject anymore. So yeah, there's certain things I'm not talking about in Vietnam. I left Vietnam in May of 1970. It's one of those deals where they tell you to change into civilian clothes before you get on the, quote, more or less civilian-looking plane and fly back to the U.S. I didn't have anybody spit on me when I came back, but I was sort of amazed that a lot of people don't realize that there was a war going on. To them, it was just something politically to bitch about. Nobody really cared. That was my impression. I would have stayed another year in Vietnam because I felt I was doing good. I had some good relationships with the Vietnamese that I worked with. And I feel bad, this is where my weepiness comes in. I feel bad that these people were abandoned, and that's how I look at it. I think we could have won the war and done a lot better if we hadn't had politics involved in it. But when you're patrolling an area and you're not allowed to shoot back, you have to let them throw the first punch at you, and then you have to call and get permission in order to fire back. That's ridiculous. You know, you're either in the war or you're not in the war. One of the reasons I didn't stay for a second year was my daughter, I got word that she had brought some of her friends in from outside and pointed to a picture of me on a wall and says, "See, I do too have a daddy." Now, mind you, at that time I'd been gone almost 3 years. So another year would have made it 4, other than to get back maybe for 2 weeks, something like that. So, as happens to a lot of military people, the military life it becomes more important than the personal life. I'm proud of what I did over there. I'm happy that I did it. I just feel bad that we abandoned the people, and I hate to think whatever happened to them after we exited the country. It wasn't fair for them.